My name's Michael from Piranha Off Road, and we've got here a V6 brand new, next car in our fleet, a V6 brand new Ford Next Gen Ranger. We're going to fit one of our battery trays, and these trays that we designed and developed are flying out the door. So let's get into it. This is what the kit looks like. Fortunately, Ford have given us space to put batteries in these things, unlike the previous generation Ranger, but how to hang on to it. So it's a bit tricky because the mudguards and inner wheel arch is all plastic on these cars. So we really only got fairly structural perimeter beam around the top. Then there's not a lot of structure below that. So we've had to hang the tray off the side of this perimeter beam. And this big support arm comes off the radiator support panel down here and supports the end of the tray here to sort of take that bounce out of it. So this is what we've got, and I haven't got a pair of pliers to undo that. So this is how our battery tray kit should come: the support arm, the top mount, and various bits and pieces. I'll run through them just quickly. Obviously the main tray, we've got a brace. This effectively sits on the bottom of the tray and comes down to the front of the support panel with this backing plate in place. I'll show you those steps later, but that's sort of what it looks like in the car. This extra plate here is a DC-DC mount, and we've included it in the kit, and also the projector one. So that's a sort of a bonus to the kit. There's the tray, a couple of brackets, top mount, and some instructions. So let's do the proper thing and read the instructions. We're going to walk through the instructions step by step and show you how it fits. So you get all the nuts and bolts you needed, and these are the sort of tools you need. Nothing fancy in terms of tools, it's just hand tools, spanners and sockets and things. You get an instruction sheet which is double-sided, actually a few steps of this. It looks probably worse than it is, and a pile of bolts. Okay, so this support base, because it goes down to the front of the car, easier access to remove the wheel arch liner. Take the airbox out and do everything from the top, but our instructions show to take the wheel arch liner out, and that's probably, in my opinion, a bit easier. So we've got a few things in the road here to start with. One of them is this washer bottle reservoir filler. It's got some ribs on the bottom of it, and we have to grind those away as a later step. But what it ends up doing is pushing it up a little bit. So there's only just a foam seal and on the top of the washer bottle in behind here. So once we take it out, so it's going to leak some water everywhere. And we've had issues that quite seal this particularly well once we fit the battery in there. So you might find some dribbles down the back of this. You overfill this washer bottle filler, you're going to find some dribbles out of the back of it. So that's a reasonably tedious process. They use a combination of Phillips headed plastic scrivets, which never undo the way they're meant to, and 7mm headed bolts. So that'll test your socket set to see whether you've got a 7mm headed bolt, but little funny little plastic, well not plastic, but steel 7mm headed bolt. Anyway, all those come out, and hopefully so does this. So with this wheel arch liner out of the road, then we can see a bit more of where the battery tray and the arm fits. So the battery tray will end up taking up this space in here. The arm comes through underneath the airbox and hooks down into this gap here in this perimeter beam cross-member arrangement that supports the radiator. So that's where we've had to pick up on. So step one was mud flap, wheel arch guard liner, screen washer bottle filler neck, bolt on the perimeter beam adjacent to the coolant expansion tank. So we've actually changed the instructions a little bit. That's this bolt here. If we pick up that bolt there, we pick up the bolt here off the air cleaner mount housing, and a bolt here. Is that 10mm? Yes, it is. And I can see that's made a bit of a wet spot on the floor, but this thing here is a bit of a problem. This foam seal around here, when we put the battery in, it lifts it up a little bit. We have to grind these little, I suppose they're notches to hold hoses. I've never seen anything plugged into those notches, but it looks like they would have held hoses to go to a screen washer maybe in the Everest or something, but I've never seen anything on there. Don't know what they're there for, but we have to get rid of those because otherwise it sits too high, even more so high up there, and leaks further. All right, once to undo this bolt here, this earth stays in place. In fact, we have part of the instruction that says we've got to fit that earth into that groove, the crush section, so the tray can sit over the top of that. So continuing on step one, we've loosened this bolt, don't need to remove it, we've loosened this bolt, taken this bolt out of the hair cleaner housing there, little 8mm headed thing. We're going to have to disconnect this wiring loom, disconnect, which is a air mass sensor, disconnect this air intake hose, the one on the wall behind it, this one. Yeah, we've done that. Lift the airbox off its mounting pins. Step two, so that's the air filter housing harness here and the perimeter beam here. So we've got the tray. So this flange here sits on top of the perimeter beam. This slips in between the washer there, and now we can just maybe loosely fit the bolt that came out of there. And one of our new bolts goes in a hole. There's two holes here because the car has, with different variations, it's got two hole locations. So hopefully that bottom hole is what we need to use. And look at that, it fits even. So one of the steps just says leave all the bolts loose to start with, because we just need to coordinate all these sorts of things and get them in place. So that's enough for the moment, because we actually don't need to remove that. So the tray's loosely sitting in place. Now it comes time for this arm. So now we've got 5 bolts. 2 of them go up the top, 3 of them go into this plate which is trapped into the perimeter beam. So you've got to manoeuvre that into place. So there's a C section on the end of that support arm that just should snug over the perimeter beam here. And then we've got bolts of this backing plate has got a similar cutout that the beam has, and it should locate in that cutout to position the beam. And this is a pain in the arse. Everything's still loose at this stage, and we're just going to put the bolts from the underside of the tray here into that support arm. Okay, so once we've done our 2 bolts that are up here on the bottom of the tray, there are 3 bolts down here on the perimeter beam on the bottom of the arm, and everything's sitting where it sort of wants to. Start with these bolts here, do these up, and then do the rest of the arms up. All right. So other than the bolt for the air cleaner, which we'll just remove again now, that's the tray installed. But that's a fairly rigid arrangement now. So step 5 was fully tighten the 3 bolts along the back plate, refit the wheel arch liner, and so now it's basically put everything back that you took off back into place.
Version 2.
So normally the battery we would fit to these cars is a wet cell battery, which is the same construction as the cranking battery but a deep cycle version of it, an M27 type case. But there's a new battery on the market that allows under bonnet temperatures. So that's not normally been something that lithium batteries are any good at, but this one is a hybrid starter. There's 2 versions of this battery. This is the 95D. Let's give this a go and see how it goes. Super light, by the way. This weighs 10 point something, 10.6 I think it is, and that's not a bad thing to keep weight off the front of the vehicle and out of our battery tray. So the issue is that these little ribs on the bottom of this filler neck mean that when it goes back in its hole, it sits on the battery and sticks way up. So we've got to get rid of those. There's a couple of ways to do it. I suppose you can start with a pair of side cutters and cut them down, and then a file. If you've got an air hacksaw, that's what I'm going to use now, and then probably finish it off with a linishing wheel just to get it smooth underneath. So we need to get rid of these little notches and this sort of housing, that strengthening part, whatever that is. Doesn't seem to do it any harm, but they're just in the road. So that's got rid of the bulk of it. I will just give it a bit of a smooth off with the linishing wheel. You could do that with a file or a bit of sandpaper, but we've got a linishing wheel here, so that's what we use. So now we've got a fairly flat surface there that will let this sit down as low as it can do it on the car. All right, so other than the top mount which slips down the screen and holds the battery down, the battery tray has swoops in the side. I'll show you later when we got the tray out of the car, another tray, which allows the J-bolt to go down the side of the battery and then twist to engage with the slot. Oh crap, that's better, huh? A little tall, but it's gonna at least do up. Oh, is it? That's where it wants to be there. It's like only just above the battery. Yes, we need an in-between really, don't we? That's a bit too long. This plate here, if you choose to use it, we supply some bolts that go up in here, and it sits on this bolt here, and that mounts a DC-DC here close to the battery. So that's the into it basically. This angle's not quite, it needs a little bit more of a sharper fold, and then it doesn't quite, it would go. Yeah, we could get that in there. All right. So we've got a 50 amp red arc DC-DC here. We don't supply bolts to mount the DC-DC to the plate. We do supply 2 bolts that go into the top of this tray here, and we're using the original, one of the original bolts that comes out of the radiator here. And that's effectively where it would sit, and that's the basics of it. So I hope you found that instructional video somewhat useful, and we'll try and do some more of them as we present more cars.